everyone, welcome to tonight's live stream. I am doing this video tonight to talk to you about using blood versus liver to test for a goat's copper status. A lot of times people ask me if they can figure out if their goat is copper deficient by doing a blood test. And unfortunately, the answer to that is no. In fact, it really could just completely confuse you and totally muddy the water and cause you to do something that could wind up killing your goat, because there is absolutely no correlation whatsoever between the serum level and the liver level of copper that is in goats. So let's get to, I just happened to be reading this study. This is a study I've been aware of for a really long time. And I often quote this study when talking about the level of minerals in the level of copper in minerals. And that is a discussion for another day. So what I'm going to talk about right now is what they did. So this was a case study where there was a herd of 400 goats that had a big problem with copper toxicosis. And when we go down here to this chart, you can see that they did blood tests and liver tests on a number of does in this herd. And these goats were 12 months old and 9 months old. And you see goat number 6 had a serum copper level of 1.49, which is high. It should be no higher than 1.2. However, the liver level is actually on the lower end of normal. It's 51, and it should be between 25 and 150. So in this case, the blood is giving you a false positive in terms of, like, you think your goat has a toxic level of copper, but it actually does not, because the liver is where is really the one that you need to know. Goat number 7, the serum is 1.63 ppm. Again, that looks really scary high because it should not be any higher than 1.2. But when you look at the liver, it was 117, which is pretty much right smack in the middle of normal there. So it's fine. Now, so maybe now you're thinking, oh, well, the serum is always going to be higher than the liver. Not so fast, because on goat number 8 here, you see that the serum copper is 1.07. So you think, oh, it's totally fine. It's like on the lower end of normal. That's great. But the liver level was 260, and it should not be any higher than 150. So this goat number 8, actually has a toxic level of copper in its liver. However, if you did a blood test, you would say, oh, 1.07. Oh, you would think that the goat wasn't at all high. You would think it was completely fine. So the next one, 1.25, just a tiny bit above the 1.20, but the liver level is fine, right in the middle of the normal range. Goat number 10, the serum looks high at 1.38, but the liver is like only a teeny bit high. So actually, if I went all the way through these, there's a nice little summary up here. There were only 3 goats that had they were the same. They were both high. Only 3 goats were they had both high serum and high liver levels. Here it is. 3 does, number 10, 13, and 14, had high serum and liver concentrations. However, 7 had liver concentrations that were higher than the upper limit, and 9 had serum copper concentrations higher than the upper limit. And the 2 did not correlate most of the time. So doing a blood test is basically a waste of money if you're curious about your goat's copper status, because whatever it says, it could be completely wrong. So as you can see from this chart, sometimes it's high, sometimes the serum's high when the liver is low. Sometimes it's the opposite. So there's not always it's not always the same. I just noticed a couple of questions in the chat. One person asked, is there a difference between oxide and sulfate? Yes. And so now you're talking about supplements. Copper oxide and copper sulfate are supplements. Copper sulfate is what they put in mixed minerals, like Sweet Licks and Purina, and all the mixed minerals have copper sulfate in them. And it's like, if it's separate, it's usually it's a blue powder if it's out separate by itself. But when it's mixed into the minerals, there's such a small amount that you don't see it at all. Copper oxide would be the copper oxide wire particles, which is literally looks like tiny little pieces of wire, but they're very smooth, and they don't. Some people used to get freaked out. I don't hear that much anymore, but some people used to be like, oh, they're going to stab the goat, and they're not. They're fine. Like, you can, play with them between your fingers and they're completely smooth. So Jennifer said, my goats need copper boluses and eat a ton of minerals with sulfate. No, I would not say one is water soluble and the other is not. That really doesn't. Copper oxide wire particles are literally wire. And copper sulfate is not, I'm not sure if I would call it water soluble. A goat will not, hopefully when you say that, you don't think that it means a goat will pee out everything that they don't need, because that is not true. I know multiple people who have killed their goats with copper sulfate. So I get very nervous when I hear people talking about supplementing with pure copper sulfate, because copper sulfate, the goats need a very tiny, tiny, tiny amount of it, which is why the concentration in goat minerals is so small. Like, it's in ppms, which 1% is 10,000 ppms. So that's why copper is put, they say the concentration of copper in a mineral is in ppms, because it is such a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. And so, yes, you can OD a goat on copper sulfate or copper oxide. I know people who have killed goats with both. However, it is much easier to do with copper sulfate. It happens a lot faster. So I know people who've given their goats pure copper sulfate and accidentally killed them, or given them multi-min shots and accidentally killed them. And that usually happens fairly quickly. Copper oxide takes like a month to dissolve in the goat's stomach. And so you could actually give a goat copper oxide and they could wind up dying from copper toxicity like a month later, because the copper level just keeps growing as the copper oxide dissolves in the rumen. So we have a free course at the Goat Academy. So if you go to goatacademy.net, there is a free course on there on copper deficiency that covers all the things you need to know. Because ironically, like 10 years ago, almost nobody knew about copper deficiency in goats. And then I created a online copper course. And today it seems like it's completely swung in the other direction, where everybody thinks that they need to be giving their goats copper oxide or copper sulfate sometimes. And so vets are seeing a lot more copper toxicity now, or copper toxicosis. So I completely revised the copper course. So if you took the old copper course, if you took the course more than 6 months ago, go to, because it used to be on the Thrifty Homesteader Academy. We moved a year ago to the Goat Academy. So it's goatacademy.net. So if you go to goatacademy.net, there is a free course on there all about copper. And so you can figure out if your goat needs additional copper supplements, because if you have a really good mineral for your goats, like Sweet Licks, that's got plenty of copper in it, your goats might not need any more copper. So a lot of times people contact me and say, oh, when should I give my goat its first copper bolus? And the answer may be never. Your goats may never need one. This is a very, very individual thing that varies from farm to farm. I always use the example of the people who had goats 4 miles from me. If they had supplemented their goats with copper the way I did, they would have killed them all, because they did not have the well water that we did. So we had so much sulfur in our well water that we had an intern 12 years ago who called it fart water. So, because it was really stinky. So, and if you have sulfur in your well water, you will know it. If you don't have a sense of smell, then people who come to your house will know it, because, so you don't need to get a test. If you have sulfur, it's what makes your water smell like rotten eggs. And, that is a copper antagonist, and it can bind with the copper and make it less available. So your goats need more. So it's important to know that, like, if you're using a good mineral like Sweet Licks, which we have Jennifer and Jessica. Jennifer says she uses Sweet Licks, which is a great mineral that has plenty of copper in it. So you shouldn't have any problems. If you're using that, you shouldn't have any problems with copper deficiency unless you've got mineral antagonists somewhere that's causing it. So Jessica said, my goat is about 7 months old, was mostly gold when I got him, and now he is almost all cream colored. I've given him copper bolus, and he has 24/7 access to Sweet Licks Meat Maker. All other goats look great. Not sure to get him back to gold. So you're saying he, but I'm wondering if it's a buck or a wether. And let's see. I had a thought and then it just went poof. Oh, right. When did you give him the copper bolus? Because hair does not change color. When we talk about, I just had this conversation with somebody today, which is one of the things that had me looking for this particular study. Hair does not change color. Like, once a hair is out, it's going to stay that color. If your goat becomes copper deficient, what happens is the new hair that grows in, if the goat is low on copper, the new hair growing in will be the faded stuff. And kind of vice versa, if you've got a goat whose coat looks completely faded, like he's cream and he used to be gold, then he's not going to turn from cream to gold very fast. Basically, he's got to get enough gold hair in and lose enough of the cream hair for his coat to start to look darker. If you pull his hair back and look at the roots, you can get a better idea of what's happening. The other thing is, do not be tempted to give him more copper. Some people will do that. They're like, they think that, like, all of a sudden the hair is supposed to change colors like really fast, and that they need to give them more, like a month or even 2 months later, and that is much too quick. So you have to be patient with the coat color changing. If you have a goat, and this is all in the copper course, so I would really encourage you to hop on the goatacademy.net and take the course, because and you'll see on there we've got pictures. Like, if a goat loses the hair on the bridge of their nose, that's actually great. That's one of the quickest and easiest things. Like, if your goat loses the hair on the bridge of their nose and you give them a copper bolus, and if they lost that hair because of copper deficiency, that hair will grow back within 3 weeks. So sometimes goats can lose hair on the bridge of their nose because they're rubbing against a feeder or something. But if that's the case, you give them a copper bolus, it's not going to grow back. And so I really worry when people think, oh, well, I gave them a copper bolus and it didn't grow back, so I'm going to give another one. No, if it didn't grow back, then copper deficiency was not the problem, because the hair on the bridge of the nose is super, super short. So I actually have photos where I take a picture of this goat that has no hair on her nose the day I gave her a copper bolus, and you see 3 weeks later, her nose is completely covered with hair. So that's what you should be looking at, if you've got a really short hair like that. But hair on the body is way longer, hair on the tail. So like a fish tail is not going to correct itself in a month. It takes a lot longer to have hair on the body and hair on the tail grow back. Jessica said that her her male goat is a wether. Sometimes wethers can wind up with too much. Depends on I would have to, if you join the course and you have questions and you post in the course, I can ask you lots of questions and we can talk back and forth, and I can help you possibly figure out what's going on if it doesn't straighten out like you expect it to. So yay, he is getting darker in some spots. That's wonderful. And the coat feels good. Yes. So it sounds like it worked. And it's just, it just takes time for that longer hair to grow in. So go ahead. So if anybody's listening, goatacademy.net, sign up for the free copper course. We also have a free breeding course there. So breeding season's coming up. If you're breeding goats, you can sign up for the free breeding course also. And we've got the thing that sets the Goat Academy apart is that I love science. And so I like to talk about the research and stuff, like looking at the research here rather than I don't tell people do what I do. It's like, well, let's look at the research and see how it applies to your particular situation. And so we can make an educated decision about what to do rather than just trying to copy what somebody else did, which may or may not work. So it's been fun chatting with you guys tonight. Hope to see some of you in the Goat Academy soon. If you've got questions, if you're watching this later, you got questions, you can post in the comment section below. But if you feel like you've really got some issues, join the course, and there is a discussion board on every single video. So and you can post photos and stuff. So it makes it a lot easier to talk about specific cases once you're a student at the Goat Academy. So bye for now.